Welcome to the Please Remain Calm podcast. My name is Ben Gonzalez. I am a licensed paramedic, LA County, for 17 years and a working comedian. Over here is my brother.
I am Daniel Gonzalez. How you doing, Ben? I am a 17-year veteran, Los Angeles City Fire Department. I've been a medic for 19 years. Also an actor. A bunch of credits from when I was a kid to currently, working on different things. Not anything now since we're still shut down, or Hollywood's still all shut down. But
this is our show. What we do here is we break down real 911 calls and emergency incidents with the victims or the responders who were on the incident. We try to make an effort to give all different kinds of incidents, give you a whole breadth of the experience from paramedics, responders, through the ER, through the hospital, the whole way through. Give people a taste of what it's like, I guess.
Yeah, and as we go through, sometimes like today we're interviewing two members of the LAFD that went through a significant incident that we're going to get into. But when we're interviewing people that aren't related to the job, I like to give a little insight as we talk about their incident to give kind of the fire department paramedic side of that incident.
Right.
So today.
Well, yeah, today we're talking about being trapped in a structure fire, and it's an episode that we had planned. When we started the show, we had you guys in mind and this idea to do this episode, but then it kind of hit home sooner to us because there was a major incident, national fire that happened in downtown LA this week that captured headlines, a lot of injuries.
Yeah, it's every firefighter's worst nightmare to lose control at an incident or have something happen at an incident that you don't have control over. A lot of what we do is pre-fire planning and knowing your district, knowing the buildings in your district and what kind of fire load they have in there and what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, we might not know, specifically, like we haven't gone through that building 100 times, but we generally know what's in that building. We generally know the layout of that building.
This one that we were talking about, that we're going to talk about later in the episode, was in your previous district.
You worked here. So Fire Station 9 is in the Skid Row area of Los Angeles City. Skid Row has maybe the largest homeless population, maybe in the country. I mean, it's a real big concentration of people, but also commercial occupancies. And the funny thing that's going on with Nine's district over the past 10 years or so is that downtown's evolved. Yeah. It's changed a lot. Gentrification, man. And they've changed a lot of those commercial buildings have been converted into high-end lofts, So you got this weird mix of commercial occupancies, but then also residential occupancies kind of mixed in. And sometimes you show up to the building and it still looks like a commercial, but it's an artisan. They got it, tossed up in there. And
right. You don't know what's inside.
You don't know what's inside. Yeah. So this incident at Nine's, essentially Truck 9, and this is, pieced together from news reports and from talking to friends of mine that were there at the incident. Basically, the truck was coming back, going back toward the station. This happened just blocks away from Fire Station 9. Fire Station 9 is a busy place. I worked there for about 4 years. They were coming back. They saw smoke, called it in. Got a structural response to this building.
This was a still alarm? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So from what I heard, they were driving back and saw the smoke. So the truck was actually there early, and the engine was not too far behind because, like I said, the station's only a few blocks from there. But they pulled up and it was it looked like a nothing fire to begin with. You know what I mean? Right. Really light smoke, kind of a bread and butter commercial structure fire for them. The strange thing about this building is it was a one-story surrounded by taller buildings on all three sides.
Right.
So the only access to the roof was from the front of the building.
Directly in front of the
building. So they've got, there's some videos of the guys pulling up, and it's bread and butter standard structure fire. Real light smoke. The guys go to work cutting the rolling steel door. They throw the 35-foot extension ladder. We use wood ladders in the LAFD to the front of the building, and the AO that drives a hook and ladder truck pulled up, gave an outside spot, and threw his aerial ladder to the roof. Mm-hmm. Roof team went up to the roof, and that's how we do things. We cut the front door open. The engine company goes in coordination with the roof team.
Right.
They cut a hole up top, let those superheated smoke and gases out, give the engine company a more tenable environment to be able to work, search through the structure, find the seat of the fire to extinguish it. Right. It's a team effort. So they're up on the roof. They cut a hole, got kind of lazy smoke out of it. Noticed that a vent a little further back on the roof, was puffing pretty good smoke. Went back there, cut a hole, got a lot more better smoke out of it.
Right.
Still ugly, kind of brownish smoke. The Capt 2 that was up there was a friend of mine who was one of my instructors in the drill tower and actually an AO at Nines when I was there. Victor Aguirre is a great guy, and I can't even tell you how competent and how good he is of a fireman, man.
Right.
Probably one of the best firemen I ever worked with.
I mean, to be Captain 2 there at Nines, it's like the...
Yeah, and he did all of his time at Nines. I mean, he's one of those guys that like loved it there, you know, and it's busy. You get fires, you get big fires. And
basically, if anyone knows it, he knows it.
he's a fireman's fireman,
right.
you know what I mean? And so he stayed there. He was an AO there, and now he's a Captain 2 over at Threes. But they were all up on the roof. He told his guys, hey, let's suit up. Ian Soriano, shout out to Ian, cut a second hole. They got that good smoke out of it, and then everyone started suiting up. So Ian handed off his saw to his tillerman.
Hey,
Suited
just
up
so
himself.
everyone knows, people who aren't, firemen that are listening, I'm the only non-fireman in the room here. When you're on a roof doing a ventilation operation, cutting holes in the roof, and you're saying suiting up after you're seeing smoke.
Yeah, so let me explain that real quick.
let's go into that.
Usually when you go up on the roof, you unless it's really smoky up there or something's wrong, conditions look like unusual, something triggers something in your brain to say, hey, something's off here, let's suit up. You usually don't mask up there. You try to kind of save your air for when it does get hairy. But usually on the roof, if there's a little bit of wind, you can kind of stay upwind of the smoke, stay out of the smoke. If you got to get in it to pull something that they cut with the chainsaw or something like that, you can kind of hold your breath or pull your hood up over your mouth to protect you from the smoke. But you typically don't mask up fully, and a lot of guys don't put their structure gloves on because you're working up there.
Right.
Especially
It's harder to work.
Yeah, it's harder to grab your radio. It's harder to manipulate tools and equipment and stuff like that. So it's just something that happens. It's not something you're supposed to do. We're all supposed to suit up every time fully.
Would you say it's a thing that's pretty much more standard to LAFD?
What's that?
To not
No.
no.
It's each individual. It's each individual's own decision that they make.
I mean, like department.
LAFD
like,
is
as far as departments go, like other departments, are they pretty much masked from the moment? They're
I
up there, or
can't
what?
really speak to that.
Who
man.
knows?
Yeah, who knows?
All right.
But that's just kind of how it goes, And so this incident, Victor told his guys to suit up. Everyone suited up. Everybody had their gloves on. Even Ian Soriano said, hey man, I put my structural gloves on too, fully masked up. Victor masked up, and then Tillerman's extending the hole. Then he said they heard like a 747 landing underneath their feet. He said that's what it sounded like. You heard this loud kind of hissing noise.
Last thing you want to hear.
And kind of a rumble under their feet. And there's some videos on YouTube that you can look up. You can hear that thing venting, and it's loud and it's scary, man.
Yeah.
And so they said, hey, let's get off the roof. They went to bail off, and half the guys got down, and while the three last guys were still on the aerial ladder, that thing blevied and blew completely out of the front of the building and across the street.
You can see it in the video.
And engulfed those guys on the ladder. They were pretty badly burned. Victor Aguirre was the worst of it. Had some pretty serious burns, and so it wound up being 12 injured. I think 7 with serious burns. 2 were intubated and in critical condition initially. Thank God that everybody is expected to recover. I think Victor's injuries are going to be a little bit more difficult to recover from, but everyone's going to live. But it's a scary situation, man.
Yeah.
It's a scary situation.
Close to home. I remember calling you when it happened because they opened an MCI for it. It's a mass casualty incident from the firefighters being injured there. A big structure fire having an MCI is not that unusual, depending on the people that were inside. They could be victims. What was weird about this was generally when an MCI starts, it's the fire department starts it on scene.
Yeah, like I would call you guys and say, hey, we got an MCI.
And then we call the hospitals, get it all going, get everything up and running. This time, the hospital called us. They said, hey, start an MCI right now. We're going to get 10 firefighters right now. And then we had to get that going. And I've been working for MAC for 12 years. Never had that once. I've never had a hospital call say, start an MCI right now.
Yeah, it's scary. Man.
That was crazy.
Then there was another perspective because there were guys inside also. They said that when they went inside, it was kind of like 2-person wide pathway for about 10 to 15 feet. And then there was a step ladder that kind of split that in half. So they were basically 1 person wide in this corridor for their egress to get out if they needed to. And they were started hearing that same hissing sound. Obviously, if you're right there and it's in your ear, it's scary as hell. They all turned to bail out, and they all kind of bottlenecked at that ladder.
Yeah, which
So,
can happen.
The guys inside I think the two guys that wound up being intubated that were most seriously injured were two of the guys that were inside. But luckily they had their masks on too, so
Right.
it wasn't like internal respiratory injuries. It was kind of external toward to their necks and other burns that they had. But like I said, man, it's a scary situation. It sounds like all the guys just jumped into a rescue, and even one of the guys that was burned drove to USC. They were just all 7 in a rescue. Boom, showed up at USC at the same time.
Right.
But thank God USC is a great hospital, man. It's a teaching hospital, and they got that big new facility too, and we're able to
If any
handle
place
everybody.
is ready for it, they're ready for it.
Yeah. So, it's just something that it's a horrific accident, and we've gone over it at the station, and there's really nothing that any of us would have done any different at that thing.
See,
Like I said,
you're bringing up a good point here, because when these incidents happen, when you have these major fires, these get studied, broken down over and over. When we went to Fire Academy, we watched videos. We saw videos that actually had our dad in them. And that's another thing, too, to go back into further background. We said this before in previous episodes. Our dad was a LAFD firefighter for 32 years, worked on a bunch of major incidents in downtown and different parts of the city, and became an engineer because he told us that he had a lot of close calls. That he had some of the things that we're going to talk about today, being trapped in a structure fire, things like that have happened to him, and it made him rethink parts of his career.
Yeah, man, it's a scary thing, and back then, when Dad was a fireman too, it was a whole different thing. I mean, it's a lot harder. We had a lot less safe equipment.
Right.
You know what I mean? They didn't have turnout pants back then. They wore basically
he started in
dungarees and
77.
jeans. Your face mask was different. I think you used to talk about how they used to have to trade off face masks. Like it was one face piece for the seat that you were in.
Oh yeah.
So when you did relief with the guy, you'd hand off that face mask. So it was a lot different back then. All the fittings and everything were brass. Now they're Pyrolite, which is way lighter. It was a different world back then. Yeah. Not to mention the racism and stuff like that they had to deal. That he had to deal
we'll
with
get into all that in later
Yeah.
episodes too.
So it kind of feeds right into our guest that we have here today, and the incident that we're going to talk about. So let me just give a brief rundown of the incident that we're going to talk about with these guys here.
Right. No, bring them on.
So back in the date was June 26, 1990 at 23:25 hours, so almost 11:30 at night. The LA City Fire Department got a structure fire call to 3500 North Eagle Rock Boulevard. That structure currently, or at that time, was a Salvation Army Thrift Store. Building was built in 1938. In 1967, it became a Salvation Army Thrift Store, and was altered a little bit with a mezzanine put in and a small space kind of scabbed in up where the mezzanine was. The ceiling was put in, and there was a space up there between the actual roof and that mezzanine level. During that structure fire, members were on the roof doing, like I said, a coordinated effort with people inside, trying to find the seat of the fire, and a ventilation crew on the roof. And about 16 minutes into the incident, they had a total collapse of the roof. That collapse almost killed the guys on the roof, and one of our guests was on that roof. But it also trapped 2 companies in that small room at the top of the mezzanine. They were trapped in there. Their hose line was burned through, so they didn't have any water. They were surrounded by fire, and the one window they had to get out had bars on it.
There's a synopsis for you.
That's a synopsis. So
let's bring our guest on.
So our first guest, or 2 guests here, we have Eric Johnson. Eric, how you doing, man?
Hey, man.
Thanks for coming.
So Eric,
Welcome.
Eric's a firefighter. He's been with the LFD for how many years?
34.
34 years. Used to work with our dad at 58s.
Yeah.
So known Eric a long time.
Since you were a kid.
Since I was a kid.
Yeah, that's right.
And Captain 2, Rob Knight. Rob, how you doing?
Good. How you guys doing?
Very good.
Great. Thanks
How
for
long you been
coming.
on the job, sir?
Just crossed 33 years.
33.
Flew by.
Knocking on the door.
When we were talking about the old days before we brought you guys on, we weren't necessarily referring to these gentlemen here as, like firemen from the 60s or something like that, We didn't mean to make you guys feel old, or when we were talking about the old days or anything like that,
That's all right.
All right. These are veteran firemen that we respect.
So let's start with you, Eric. That night, you're working on engine 50.
Yes.
Were you assigned to 50s at the time?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So it's your regular shift, your crew.
Regular shift.
Okay. The day up until that point, just a normal
day.
regular day.
Yep.
Have you ever been in that building before?
I don't remember going in there. No.
No. Okay. What do you recollect?
But like
about,
you said, you know the general layout of certain buildings in your district.
Yeah.
You're like 5 years on the job then?
Yes.
Or so?
I came on 85, 86.
All right.
So.
So you're kind of at the height of your like rah.
Being trucking.
Firefighter
Ready to go.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
Yeah, ready to
Right
go.
on.
And Cap, you were on Light Force 1, Truck 1 that night, right?
Right, that's correct.
But you weren't assigned there at the time.
No, I was assigned there.
Oh, okay.
But it's 30 years ago, so I can't remember. It was because the captain there was Craig Morrison, and the AO was Mike Rueda. So, and I know there were A shifters. So I don't know if they were working overtime or I was the one working overtime.
Okay, gotcha.
But
But you
my
were assigned there.
That was my assignment. Yeah.
You were tillering that night?
I was Tillerman.
Okay, so the Tillerman, just for those of you listening that don't know, drives the back of the big hook and ladder truck, for lack of a better word. And basically, his job at a structure fire is to throw a ground ladder when you get there. 35-foot extension ladders probably went up at this building, and then he's kind of like the right hand man for the AO who cuts all the holes up there. And if multiple holes need to be cut, and there's two saws up there, usually the Tillerman's the most experienced firefighter, and that will assist with cutting holes up top and stuff like that. So, Eric, what do you remember about like when you first responded, when you got there?
I thought it was going to be a routine fire, maybe a false alarm even. But
Yeah.
we heard it was smoke showing and something was going. So your antennas go up right away and you start perking up and thinking about what you're going to do.
Right.
So that's what I was preparing for.
You guys were the first task force, right?
Yes, it was first unseen, we call it.
A lot of smoke. So a lot of smoke when you got there.
A lot of smoke, and immediately went in. I was actually inside guy, so we went in and went up into the front of the building, and we started to just head up to the mezzanine to fight fire. I started fighting fire with the engine company, and I was with my engine company and 44s, and visibility was poor. So as we started to head up the stairs, and us firemen, when we go in, you don't just go in squirting water everywhere.
Sure.
You usually go to
Waiting for the
where the
fire.
fire is. You get to the seat of the fire, and then you want to knock it down.
Wet stuff on the red.
On the red
wet stuff
stuff.
on the
Wet
red
stuff-
stuff.
red
I
stuff
think that's
in the
how
red
it
You don't
goes,
want-
yeah.
You don't want
Yeah.
to squirt smoke.
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have more damage,
see shit,
water
yeah.
damage, than you have the smoke or fire.
Yeah.
So yeah, we waited a while, and as we're going up the stairs, you start hearing things. And back then, as you said before, we didn't have the equipment that we have today. We didn't have hoods. We didn't have
There were no hoods in 1990?
no.
Yeah. Either we just got them or
No, a few guys had them that were, hey man, you
could
should
get them
these.
yourself?
Yeah. But
Yeah,
there was also a macho factor back then too,
Yeah,
because a lot of
and-
guys used their ears to kind of get a signal
Right,
when it was
exactly
getting too
Your
hot. in
ears
there.
start to sizzle or burn, and you start to feel that little pain, and you
remember
know when to
hearing
back
that.
out. So a lot of guys were anti-hood.
Yeah.
Anti-hood.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah. Also, maybe we'll talk about it later on, but only one guy has a radio. Only captains have radios.
Yep.
And
Another huge difference between
out of
today and then.
us that were heading up to the mezzanine, it was one captain. Was it one or two captains? I don't remember.
Yeah, so
What's
I think
his
I
name?
remember the one captain.
you had Captain Andrade.
Andrade.
Was it Andrade with you?
Yeah, it was.
I know Andrade was up there.
Yeah,
go with that.
but there was
Right.
another captain I know. Was it?
Daly was the other one that was on 55.
You
I
sure?
believe.
Well, I don't remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
So,
But that comes into play when you guys are up there.
Only I thought it was only one radio. I thought it was only one captain reflecting on this. So, yeah, nowadays everybody has a radio, and you have the emergency button to push.
Yeah.
and that's
things
kind of
like that.
that's kind of key here.
So
is-
and that one captain that had a radio, we didn't have emergency
No.
an emergency button to push in case of something like this. So
did they have emergency traffic procedures back then though? Like now we have Mayday. Before we had emergency traffic.
I'm sure the captains
really.
maybe
Not
had
really.
something to
Some
go,
kind of
but we
training,
didn't
yeah.
have a Mayday. Of
Firefighter
course, you
down,
have
that was it.
no, you have a incident commander, and whatnot. So you can always radio him and say, "Hey, we're in trouble here." But it was no specific procedure for a Mayday situation.
Right.
So like I say, if something were to go awry, he would just say, "Hey, there's 8 of us up here trapped. We need help."
Yeah.
And they would focus on that and get help.
But you guys individually had no way to notify anybody aside from yelling out that window that you were trapped up there.
I think.
So
let's get to them being trapped.
Yeah. So you get up to now when you get in there. It's smoky, obviously. Do you see that there's fire up in the mezzanine area? Did you guys gravitate
remember
right to
seeing
that?
anything. No.
Okay.
As we got up there, we saw smoke and we assumed that that's where things are going.
Trying to get to the high point. Yeah.
Right.
And as we get there, then things started to get a little, and we started to knock fire down, and it looked like at the time it looked like progress is being made. So. Then you feel like it was an earthquake or something. Things started to go down, but you don't know that the whole building's coming down.
Sure, yeah.
You can't see anything. It's hot. Visibility was
hear
really
it
poor.
and
It
feel it.
was absolutely, you couldn't see anything.
Yeah, and that's kind of another thing that people don't realize is that typically when you're fighting fire, you're working in the dark. You're
Completely.
You're working
Yep.
in the complete dark. You're working by feel
Blind.
until you can find that fire, and it kind of lights things up a
Yeah.
little bit, and
That
then you can
glow,
see. But
lights
for
it
the
up.
most part, even house fires, pretty much any structure fire that you're dealing with a decent amount of smoke, you're working in the dark. So I'm going to stop you right
Yeah,
there.
let's pause. Yeah.
Cap Knight, why don't you give me your perspective of like pulling up? You're tillering, so when you're tillering, you get that kind of bird's eye view as you're coming up. Did you kind of know you were pulling into something a little bit more serious as you were pulling up?
And I could hear also the radio that 50s was there first.
Okay.
And so we had an idea. We had a working structure fire. So, and that's exactly what you mentioned earlier about typically the tillerman's responsibility. I was to throw a ground ladder. That's what we did. 35-foot extension ladder. We made it to the roof of the parapet, grabbed a chainsaw, and that was our operation. We knew we would assist in truck 50 up on the roof for ventilation. Get up there, and it is very smoky up there. And typically, you did not put your breather on when you're on the roof.
Yep.
It's pretty much you're out in the open air, and it's enough air to pass through as you can still breathe fine and still work.
And this
and
is
be
smoke from,
effective.
they had already cut holes by the time you
They
were
were
up, but this
working-
is the smoke that already broke through.
This was already the smoke that was already just puffing
Through the eaves and
every
stuff, yeah.
crack it could find. And when we got there was a little bit of fire at that rear portion of where that mezzanine level was that already burned through the roof. So this was an arch roof, arch rib roof. And when you got off the parapet, off the ladder onto the parapet and onto the roof, there was probably about a 3-foot drop. So the parapet was about 3 foot high from the roof itself.
Right.
Then you would walk across and up the arches or the main structures to the top of the roof, and then we would have a cutting operation there with 2 saws. So I just remember as soon as I got up there, I just realized how smoky it really was, and almost like I can't really breathe.
And I think an important thing to mention too is that that type of roof. We know a lot about roof construction in general, right? Because you want to know what you're walking on up there. That type of roof is really, if you pull up to it, it's a strong roof.
It's a very strong
Very
roof.
strong roof. That construction uses large timber, and it lasts a lot longer and is a lot stronger in a structural fire situation than these newer buildings. So,
Right.
so continue.
Yeah,
So-
and I was a young fireman, and of course, I had about 2.5, 3 years on the job, so I thought I was hot stuff, of course.
stuff.
So I didn't want to be the only one putting a breather on, but I'm like, I can't breathe. I got to put my breather on, and I noticed that there was a little bit of flame that had already burned through the roof in the back portion. I knew this was a very strong roof, very heavy construction, so it kind of told me an idea that, for it to be burning through the roof, this thing had to be burning a long time for it to burn its way through.
Yeah.
So as soon as we got up there, and the AO, Rueda, I remember him mentioning, hey, this roof is starting to sag. And if you looked across the roof line, you could see kind of a waffle, we call it a waffle pattern, where you could see where in between the rafters, there was a little bit of sag, then the rafter just sag. And it's like, hey, you know what? You're right. And I had just bent over to start my saw, and the roof made one of these moves that it like dropped and like almost like a trampoline type, like boom, 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 and like hung up. And all I know is we all just scrambled. Hey, everybody just a shout, scream, everybody off the roof. We just ran. And in my mind, I'm still not interpreting what's really happening. I'm like, man,
It's not
is this roof
registering.
really, is this roof really coming down while I'm standing on it? And so everybody's scrambling to leave. And as I'm going back, and I'm going back the same direction that I came, because I know that's the safest route, because that's the same route I took to get there. That's the safe route to take to get back, right? So I'm getting there, and as I'm approaching the parapet wall, I'm noticing that this wall is now 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, and I literally have to drop the chainsaw, and grab with both hands and pull myself up. This
Man.
roof is falling.
Did it seem kind of slow motion as it was happening?
It seemed like it was all slow motion, and I mean, when that roof came down, it was very, very loud, very, very violently loud, and we all pulled ourselves up, and we straddled the parapet wall like we're sitting on a wall with one leg in, one leg out, and I can still hear the tear of the roofing paper and everything just ripping away, and just a big wall of fire just blowing right then.
And you're sitting on top of the parapet now, all
Right.
of you guys.
Right.
with
just
the wall
sitting there.
collapsed.
Yes. When the roof collapsed.
And this is your first roof, the first time you've experienced
First
it like
time
this,
I've
right?
ever rode a roof in. The first time I ever rode a roof in. So it's like I'm still not really registering what is actually happening. But my training just kept me moving in the right direction. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this can't be what I think is really happening. And we're sitting on that wall. And so now that the roof is gone, it's just big wall of fire on our right side. And then about 2 stories up or higher is concrete parking lot. So I got a choice here,
Hell
right?
of a choice,
So
yeah.
I go to the parking lot and maybe I can survive broken bones, or I burn to death. And so the ladder that was up there, while we were all sitting on it, I mean, the wall now is, of course, the wall was supposed to be the last strong point of the structure. It was wood frame stucco. So now that wall was starting to start to wave, and I can tell you, I can't remember when that happened. I thought we were having an earthquake too. When you
Swaying,
said that,
huh? Yeah.
it was swaying.
Yeah,
It
so
had
it all
that.
feels
It had the same kind of motion, like that rolling motion of our earthquakes that we have here in
Sure,
Southern
yeah.
California. And I'm thinking to myself, we can't be having an earthquake now. And everything just kind of slowly put itself together, and everybody just kind of scooted along the way, got to that one ladder that we got up to,
Man.
and we all just went right on down that ladder. And the top portion of that fly section of that 35 that we went up and we came down was on fire. We totally burnt it crisp, and we all got off. 7 of us barely made it.
And you're saying you scooted from the top of the wall, like
Right.
straddling it, like a knocked over log, basically. We're
Basically,
sliding it
sliding it just like yep,
Against
to
on
the
a log,
ladder,
man.
fire on one side,
concrete.
2-3-story drop on the other side,
Right.
and
And
then
the
get
other thing
down.
to remember is that when that roof goes in, man, it's a miracle didn't pull the wall down with it. You know, with that heavy lumber
Yeah,
that's
right?
connected
Yeah,
to
for
the
the
wall.
arch
It's
roof.
connected
When
to
you
the
have a
wall.
collapse, a lot of times, that's all kind of the strength of it is all being one piece. The walls being sturdy, being supporting
Right.
those trusses. So when that whole thing comes in, a lot of times those walls will come in, and actually the front section of the building did collapse a little further on into the incident.
Yeah.
They had a total collapse of the
Right,
structure.
right.
So the fact that it stayed up for you guys and you were able to
Yeah,
scoot
just
a
long
miracle.
enough.
is
Yeah.
amazing, man. So
So then,
that, so that happened 16 minutes into the
Yeah.
incident.
So they get down, but now you're on the ground. You're alive.
Yes.
But now there's a rescue operation to get.
So let's cut
You
back.
guys, right?
We'll cut back over to Eric.
Yeah.
So you're up in that kind of mezzanine, that room up top.
Yes.
Knocked down some fire in there, and then pulled the ceiling and found more fire up in that void space
Well,
up
at that
there.
point, it seemed as if the ceiling had come down.
Okay.
And there's a lot of fire, and for some reason, we get no water. Because when the roof came down, it just came down on the
Burn through your
on the
line.
hoses that were inside and cut off our water supply. So we had no water, and fire's impinging on us from one side, and there's a window that everybody's scrambling to get out of. But like you said earlier, those bars were there, and these weren't the bars that are on windows now, where
Yeah.
they're hollow inside. You can easily kick them through. They were the solid,
Steel,
Yeah.
like
or
you're
iron
in jail.
bars.
Yeah. So
How big is this window, you think?
it's not a large window. It wasn't large at
It
all.
wasn't large at all.
No. Anyway, it was getting hotter. We're running out of air. That was a big thing. And like Rob said here, it's something when you think back, you reflect on your training.
Yeah.
And I always thought, it never happened to me where I have to act on that one decision that they trained us on so much. If you get in trouble and you're out of air, you take the hose out. Back then we had a breathing apparatus that had a hose attached to the face piece.
Like an elephant
and the
trunk.
breathing bottle.
Right.
Yeah.
So you would disconnect the hose and stick it inside of your coat.
Right. Remember
So that you don't breathe the hot air and sear your lungs. So I always wondered if I'd actually do that and wouldn't panic. And I did it. I was completely out of air.
Yeah.
And but now you're breathing in some of your shirt. and
Sure,
stuff.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
getting
Shit.
you're not getting a good
And,
breath of
and
air.
I'm gonna ask, this is the first time you ever had to do that?
Oh, definitely. Yes.
Okay, right.
And last.
Well, yeah, you're just saying too. Yeah.
Well, you know, this
Right.
is 60 minutes into the incident. You got to remember when you're working.
Yeah, how long does
if
the
you're-
bottle usually last?
Well, if you're on
I
air
forgot.
and you're working, man, you're working, you're breathing hard,
Right, right.
you're sucking down that bottle pretty quick. So, and especially if you have something like that
Yeah, where you're
happen,
trapped, yeah.
yeah, and
But back then they were half-hour
Half-hour
bottles,
bottles.
but because of you're exerting a lot of energy.
You're exerting-
yeah, it's going through.
That,
Right.
depending on how good a shape you're in, that will be cut in half or
and then you got to take into account. Panic is a scary thing too, man.
Yeah, you
know what I
breathe
mean?
more.
It increases your respirations, your heart rate. So all that stuff, we're dealing with all that stuff. So you're up there. You guys are now surrounded by fire. I should mention that when the roof did come in, it was engine 50, engine 44 were trapped on the second floor. There were members from engine 55 that were on the stairs going up to the mezzanine. When that thing fell, it jacked those stairs up, knocked them to the ground. They were surrounded by fire. And there's a interview with he's an AO now, Sean Wonders. Is he a
captain.
He's
now.
a
Captain
captain
now.
now, yeah.
He's a
Sean
captain.
Wonders was a
Rookie.
rookie at the time. He was down there with his captain, and essentially in interviews that I've heard with him, his captain basically said, "Hey man, we're gonna die," and he said, "Nuh-uh," and started crawling around trying to find a way out. Found a 30-foot kind of tunnel through the rubble that led out of the building. Came back in, grabbed his captain, and pulled it and helped him direct the way out. That's the story out there.
Okay.
So so that happened.
That's
So
pretty much it.
the point I'm trying to make is that this event not only trapped you guys. I mean, it basically throws
There's at
the
least
entire
three different scenarios.
it throws the entire incident into a frenzy.
Right.
Now people are scrambling to effect a rescue. You guys are up there trying to escape. Now, did you have an Axon at the time? I mean,
I had one.
you had one, okay?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times guys in the
I
engine
couldn't
company
get to it
won't put their
well.
Axon.
When the roof came in, rubbles on it. We all got hit with stuff.
Right.
So trying to get out, couldn't really get to it. There was a pike pole. I used it a little bit to hit the. Romeo and I were trying to. Romeo Brooks, one of the firemen, great fireman, great guy.
Saw an interview with him.
Yeah.
He was
right
the,
after the
saw that
incident.
video,
yeah.
The guy in the interview. They interviewed as. I think I was getting in the rescue.
Yeah, I saw that.
My hands were
I
burned.
thought it
and
was
I
you.
had-
Oh, that's
my,
you.
Yeah.
My ears were burned
That's
and my
right.
hand was burned.
Yeah, I saw that clip.
So we were both trying to get through the wall.
Busting through the wall with
Yeah,
a pike pole
yeah.
and
And
trying to
then-
punch it out.
breach the wall with the
Trying
pike
to,
pole?
and we
Yeah.
breached. We
And
we
they
got
did.
through.
Yeah.
We got through.
And his
but-
lath and plaster was stuck on the outside.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the studs were there, and it was and at that, and no one knew we were there. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
No one knew. They thought everybody had been in the building at that time.
Now, how did you
Yeah.
guys wind up hearing that?
Well, what happened is once we got off the roof, we were all kind of still in kind of shell shock.
Sure.
And we almost we all just kind of like dispersed to kind of gather our heads. And so I just remember just walking around to the to rear of the building, and I saw the hose lines going in, and I just saw nothing but just burning debris on top of it. In my mind, I said, we lost some guys for sure. There's no way some guys survived this.
It's amazing when you look at the videos
yeah,
after the
seriously.
collapse
When I
that,
saw it, I
that
said,
everyone
I
survived.
says, no way, there's no way we lost somebody. And I just kept walking, and I just went around to the other side of the building, and the ladder was up, and I remember it was Mike Rader, my AO, who I was on the roof with, and I don't know who brought him the ladder, but he had got the ladder up, and then he had the rotary saw was there on the ground, and he was trying to start it, a couple pulls, and I ran over there to him, and I looked out, and I saw the window, and I saw the guys reaching with their hands through the bars, through the
You know what it makes me think of? That Pirates of the Caribbean
Yeah.
thing where the guys are in jail doing like this
Yeah.
with the dog.
Yeah, it was similar.
I make
It's-
jokes.
and-
I make light of everything.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you busted out that
Everything's
window,
a joke to me.
You're flashing a light
right,
out there,
right.
yelling.
We're doing everything.
Because this is 1990. There's no RIT crews. then,
No.
or anything
No.
like that. None of
That was
that
a-
stuff.
that
was started.
concept wasn't even-
nothing, right?
We didn't have that operation
Yeah.
at all right then. So we were all kind of like doing a self-rescue, or we just rescued our own when we saw somebody go down. So when we saw that, I grabbed the saw from Mike, and I just ran up the ladder and cut the bars off. And I could see them, and I could see the smoke and the fire behind them. I could see the panic in their eyes. And I did remember seeing that little opening. I want to say by the opening was probably as big as maybe 6 inches wide, maybe 8 to 10 inches tall, and I can see them just banging, trying to breach that wall.
Yeah.
And I cut the top angle, bottom angle, and started pulling on, and they just busted right on out of there. In fact,
Head first.
One of the captains. That's why I thought it must have been on drive.
It was on drive,
44. They were so crowded up in that window, that little small space, that arms and legs and everything trying to get through, that one of the members, when he tried to come out of the window, as he mentioned there, they had the face piece that had the hose attached, and it went all the way
Right.
down to a second stage regulator. And so when he had actually reached his, I don't know if he went head first, but it wasn't by choice.
By choice.
He was actually kind of drug out, because what happened is his arm was in between the hose and the second stage regulator in his body, and so when he reached out to get onto the ladder, he drugged Captain Andrade by the face,
Oh, shit.
Oh man.
and that's how he went.
Yeah.
Chunk
Off that second floor,
from
yeah.
the second floor,
Landed on his back
right
there?
right out the window, right
Wow.
on his back, right there.
But I'll bet.
And
But
they
I'll
all
bet he
got
was
out.
happy to be down there.
Yeah, I knew he was
Oh,
happy
yeah.
to be out of there, and we all survived. I look
When
back and down.
someone realized we were actually up there, we saw a ladder come up, and we're thinking, "Oh, thank God,
Yeah.
here we are. We can get out." But now it's getting really hot,
Yeah.
and things are starting to literally cook
Melt on you.
me. And
Yeah.
my jacket was getting burned, and my helmet actually melted. I still have it.
Yeah.
So I know my ears were kind of sizzling. And a guy comes up that ladder that someone put up. I'm not going to name names, but he couldn't get the saw started.
On the ladder, he's trying to start.
He's
the
on the ladder, and he's just pulling away.
and you're
we're
like,
like,
"Fuck, hand it to me."
Oh my God.
Oh
he
my
couldn't
God,
get it
man.
started. And then he goes down, and then our knight in shining armor comes up right here.
Knight in
Yeah.
shining armor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the moment of being rescued,
Almost slipped away, basically. Yeah,
you
it could have.
you're like, hey, hang on a minute. There's gonna be another
Yeah.
hot five.
Be right back.
Yeah,
Man.
man.
Did you? So you guys got out. Obviously, you were able to scramble down. Out of the window, got down to the floor, and then it was straight to a rescue. Get looked at and transported out of there, or did?
Yeah, they started to strip the clothes off because my jacket was burned, and they noticed the helmet. My ears were sizzling, and my hand was a little burned. I had gloves on, but they went through it. The fire was kind of really intense. It has to be to burn a Lake Sand helmet that takes,
Yeah.
what,
Oh yeah.
600 degrees to burn or something? Yeah.
And you guys continue going to work at the fire. I mean, obviously the fire's not out. Kind of in a surround and drown.
We went straight into defensive mode and surround and drown, heavy streams, and we just sat on it until we got it out. But just amazing that we all made it out alive.
It's incredible.
And then had to go right back to finish working on it.
Yeah. Well, you
Yeah,
still
there's
gotta
no.
put the
Yeah,
thing
so, I mean,
out.
there's no. Yeah, break. Hey, you're alive now. All right, get your ass back in.
I'm sure they added more companies and
They
stuff
did,
like that
yeah.
to do, set up
Right.
ladder pipes and stuff like that. Did you guys you obviously went off duty for a little while after that?
No. Oh, maybe.
really?
Don't remember. Yes, because I had to go to a burn unit and they had to check my hand out. And
Did
the ears.
did you what did you change about, if anything, about like your operation afterwards?
I don't think we did anything wrong. I don't
Yeah.
think there's anything I would change. I couldn't do anything different. You know, it's
Just the way the
like
cookie
the
crumbles
fire the other
sometimes.
day at
Yeah.
downtown.
Just how it happened.
That's what we do as firemen. You know?
Yeah.
And that's why it's a dangerous career, because things happen, even if you're trained well. You know.
And the shit hit the fan here, and there were what, at least 3 different situations in the same fire.
Yeah.
The different crews trapped.
Yeah, guys were burned in
Having
the
to get
parapet.
out.
One of the AOs that was straddling the parapet was badly burned and had to have some skin grafts and a whole bit. Yeah.
It's amazing you all didn't. I mean, when you see the video of it right after the
And I
collapse,
think of you guys in that room.
the inferno
We're in the
that
room
happens
and
afterwards.
no one knew where we were.
Yeah, it's the whole thing.
I thought it was over.
Yeah.
I knew it was over.
I mean, you have like a pass alarm and that's it?
No.
Not-
Oh, yes.
yeah.
Yes, we did. And oh, no. Actually, we had our own. But I remember just
The
not
old
too
orange,
long
the old
before
orange
that.
one, right?
Yeah, I remember those.
No,
yeah.
before that, it was a black one that you had to pass off to your relief.
Yeah.
As you came on. Yeah.
How about you, Cap? I mean, you're for those that don't know, Cap Knight was my captain at 63. He's been for the past 4 years. He's moving on to greener pastures at 112s. Congratulations on that. Had his
or 80s.
The harbor.
had his
I heard rumor of you coming to 80s.
Oh well, things change.
airplanes or boats, one of the two.
Right.
But yeah, he had his last shift with us. We're sad to see you go. I mean, there's they're just like any other career. There are good leaders and there are bad leaders. So how would you say, do you think, is this incident something that you keep with you, to, you know, as your leadership role? Like when you're up on a roof, did it change the things that you look out for up on a roof or anything like that?
I think you have to. You look back over the course of your life and your career, and you look at incidents that were close calls, especially one like that one at the Salvation Army. So now when I go up on a roof in a meeting, I see smoke puffing out of every little orifice and crack. My red flag goes up, and I'm very, very concerned. I'm paying very close attention to those conditions, and it doesn't look right. I'm not afraid to make the call. Hey, it's unsafe. It's time for us to back out. So, yeah, I keep it with me.
Yeah, because you've seen how quickly things can go from normal
Yeah.
to
And I feel
deadly.
the same way. On top of the roof is a little different than being inside.
Sure.
Yeah.
Inside, it wasn't anything we could do. But when you're on the roof, you have an option of bailing out early or trying to tough it out. And
Yeah.
it's a good decision to get off that roof if you see something go.
Especially when you consider, and this is something that you consider when you're pulling up to a structure fire, is what is it in the building that we're trying to save? You know, what I mean, it's you approach it differently when it's an
Is
apartment.
it worth a life?
Is it worth the life? Are these clothes inside this thrift store worth 10 or 11 guys dying? It's a little different if it's an apartment building or something like that. You
Right,
know,
of course, yeah.
And you've got
gotta
lives
go
at
for it,
risk.
yeah.
That's what we sign up for.
Right.
But that's something to take in consideration also. But so how did you guys feel? Obviously, the incident over at Nines was horrific the other day, and watching the videos of it's really, really hard to watch.
You guys watch the videos?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got some of the
Oh, yeah,
video of
definitely.
it. Yeah, thing went from 0 to 100, like right now. Very disturbing.
Well,
Same thing.
yep.
Guys looked like they were doing everything right. I saw the video when they first pulled up. It was like very light smoke. I don't see anything that they did that wasn't our normal operation. Looks like they did everything correctly. It just went from 0 to 100 really, really fast, and they are very fortunate to get out of that thing alive. That the volume of fire that they were exposed to, it's amazing that they were able to survive that.
It's incredible.
It's amazing. You see, 35 was completely charred black.
Yeah.
It's almost like I didn't even recognize our own equipment after I saw that. It was very, very, very disturbing.
And the fact that it blew completely across the street too. I mean, there's pictures and videos of Truck 9,
Right through the cab of the
which
truck.
was parked across
Yeah.
the street. Yeah, it burned up the entire interior of the truck.
Yeah, the ladder was
The ladder's
Charred.
completely black. Yeah, it's a tough incident, man. I did want to mention before we finish here that there is a charitable fund that was set up through the United Firefighters of Los Angeles City, UFLAC. They set up a charitable fund for all the guys, basically everybody that was burned at that incident, aside from Captain Aguirre, who was assigned to 3s but working overtime at 9s that day. Pretty much everyone was assigned to 9s. So this fund, it's tax free. Every dime that gets donated to this fund is going to the guys at 9s that were affected by this fire and their families. So you can visit uflac.org. That's uflac.org, and there's a spot right there where you can hit the button and donate. I know it's tough out there right now. You know, everybody's been kind of out of work with this pandemic. But if you are able to, and you're looking for something to give to, it's a good spot where you can give to help support these guys that are going to be affected and by these injuries for the foreseeable future. There was another GoFundMe set up for Captain Aguirre that's been doing very well.
Yeah, that one might not be available still by the time this airs.
Yeah, but I do want to mention the UFLAC one because that's a good spot to go if you want to help those guys out. Again, I've worked with some of those guys. I know them very well. A couple of them are pretty good friends. They're all great guys, and it'd be going to a good cause. What else we got, man?
We had a lot right here. I mean, the parallel too, thinking of you coming down that ladder with that group of guys, and the same thing that you see in the video.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you lived it.
Right.
Basically, like you know exactly that feeling. I remember you talking about just that difference of the first group of guys were going down the ladder, backing down.
Yeah.
And then,
well, I mean, that just speaks to how quickly conditions changed at that incident. You know, even when the first 3 guys are coming down that aerial and the fire's kind of blowing out their front door, the last thing you expect is for that thing to levy the way it did and blow out with such force that it blows the entire street away.
Right.
I mean, I don't think that's anything that any of us would have, coming down that ladder. And we've all been on the roof at a fire and thought it was time to get off. And the thought of something inside being so flammable, so explosive that it blows like a blowtorch, and it was really like a blowtorch.
right.
And it goes you on that aerial is just something that you don't think about. So you can see the first group of guys kind of backing down that aerial, and then it starts to lick them a little bit, and then they turn and hightail it down there, man. It really is a miracle that those guys are alive. It's a full testament to our PPEs and to fully suiting up.
Though, like you were talking about running down a ladder trying to hit the rungs.
Well, yeah,
we can't see shit. Flames are through.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. And you have to imagine that if they weren't masked up, being face down, engulfed in fire like that, the outcome would have been much worse.
Because the one guy slipped through.
Yeah, running down an aerial is hard to do on its own when you can see everything, when you're panicked and flames all around you and stuff like that. It's tough to deal with. So, for those of you out there that are listening that are firefighters, you take every close call that you hear about, even if it's something that you weren't involved in, and you kind of tuck that back in your Rolodex of things to remember when you're at a fire. And so here's another one, man. You never know what's going to happen on a roof. Your fortunes can turn on a dime on the scene of a structure fire, and you need to, and like I've said it before on Instagram, things that I posted. It sounds cliche every time we say it, but it's a slogan that we have at the LAFD.
Yeah.
Train as if your life depends on it, because it does. You fall back on your training when you're panicked like that. And
that's what both of these guys said.
Yeah, and
the shit really hit the fan, and that's what they did.
And your PPEs, your protective gear, is there to protect you when shit hits the fan. And thank God they all had that stuff on. Thank God you guys, with your training, recognized that the roof was sagging, was going to come down, and were able to get yourself to safety.
And you mentioned PPE, like you were saying, there's new hoods now. We're talking about
so
this fire, no hoods.
So, it's like, there's reactions to everything. Every time there's an incident, a significant incident, or somebody gets hurt, like you said before, there's an investigation into it. They do a complete, 360 view of the incident and what happened, interview everybody, and a pretty detailed report comes out at incidents, especially where firefighters are injured.
Yeah, they did one for this incident too, and we can put a link for it.
Yeah, and And yeah, a couple days after the incident, we got some new hoods. Just a little more coverage, a little thicker, and hopefully that'll make a difference in a fire in the future.
Yeah,
But,
I'm sure everything changed operations wise since the
Well,
incident that we talked about here, as far as watching people on the fire ground, accountability.
Yeah, and that's
knowing
all
where everyone is,
and that's all you can do, man. Is take a look at the incident as a whole, see what could have been done better, if anything, and that's kind of what's scary about both of these two incidents that we're talking about. Is I don't really know what could have been done differently that would have really made that much of a difference.
Right.
It's an inherently dangerous job. When you go to a structure fire, you don't know how long it's been burning, what part of the structure it's been burning,
or what's in there that's burning,
or if somebody set it intentionally and there's accelerant in there. There's all kinds of variables that you don't know, and shit happens. You know what I mean? So, want to thank you both for coming down. I know
you
it's a
guys
little
were
bit of
awesome.
drive.
Thank you.
Traffic's coming back, so I really appreciate you coming in and talking to us about it. And
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it was an
that's
amazing
it.
story.
Yeah, is that all we got?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times we have guests on, they're promoting something, they drop
That's
where
right.
to follow them, handles and everything. That's not going to always be the case on every show here.
No.
Yeah?
As always, I want to mention that the opinions expressed here are ours and ours alone. They do not reflect the Los Angeles City Fire Department or the LA County Department of Health.
If there's anything you guys do want to promote or say at the end, or drop, shout out, feel free.
Nope.
We're pretty much wrapped here. But
Life.
thank you very much again to our special guests.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
you guys are
yeah.
amazing. Ron Knight,
right.
Eric Johnson, thank you very much.
You're
All right.
welcome.
This is the Please Remain Calm podcast. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe. You can follow me at Ben9Humor, Ben number 9 Humor, like benign humor, Instagram, Twitter.
And you
Danny-
can follow me at DannyGonzo34 on Instagram and Twitter, and follow the podcast at PRC Pod on Instagram.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, boys.
All right.